Hi Robert, I'm here today to finally do your full opening of the key reading. Um, Sorry it's taking me so long. I have three jobs. I work. I'm a busy person. Um, so I'm just getting to it today, and I've been sick lately. So here we are. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. You told me that you were a Taurus, so for your significator, we're going to be using the Prince of Discs in this reading. Excuse me. Um, we also talked a little bit about via email that you didn't have a question specifically. The opening of the key sort of works better if you have a specific thing in mind. So I am going to take what you suggested and just say that we'll do a general reading for what's going to take place over the next year or so of your life. Okay, so let's start. This could potentially be a very long video. I think what I'd like to try to do is do the whole reading in one fell swoop. So the video could come to about 2 hours plus. So hopefully it uploads okay and everything like that. But anywho, okay. You told me you wanted it done on YouTube, so on YouTube it shall go. Okay, so your significator is going to go on top. I invoke thee, Eao, that thou wilt send Heru, the great angel, who art set over the operations of this secret wisdom, that he may lay his hand invisibly upon these consecrated cards of art, and that thereby we may obtain true knowledge of hidden things, to the glory of thine ineffable name. Amen. All right. Using a smaller version of this deck today, just so that I can definitively fit everything on the bed, which is what I'm doing this on. Don't really have a table that's well suited for this kind of reading. Okay. Just one more. I do like to give it as good a shuffle as possible. Alright, so now we're going to cut into the 4 piles that represent the 4 elements. Okay, let's see what we have here. In the fire pile you have the Princess of Cups. In the water pile you have the Empress. Air pile you have the Prince of Cups. In the earth pile you have the Devil. So actually the strongest cards we have so far are the Empress and the Devil. Perhaps the Devil more so than the Empress, because he's in his own element and is pretty happy to be there. It seems that there is there could be a young woman involved in this, who you possibly have a kind of, either you have a maternal relationship with her, or she could be, possibly she could be your daughter. The Princess of Cups represents usually a youthful individual who is very sweet and very generous and very kind. She's just got this sweetness about her. She likes to help people. She likes to do good for other people. She can be very poetic and imaginative and very creative. And she's in your fire pile again. So she sort of represents the beginning of all this. She isn't particularly well aspected here, which means she could be kind of a lethargic person in this situation as well. But that's not necessarily relevant. Slightly more relevant is the Empress. Your kind of nurturing relationship with her, I feel, is more important than any of her personal characteristics per se. There is perhaps an issue you are having either with her or her brother, possibly. We have the Prince of Cups here, who is usually a male figure who is perhaps in a reading where you've got multiple courts of the same family, perhaps he is related to the Princess of Cups in some way. Usually it represents a slightly more mature male figure. The Prince of Cups is usually very secretive and intense. He's known for emotional intensity and privacy and secrecy and plotting, actually. He can be very intimidating. On the surface, he looks like he's not particularly moved by much, but deep down inside, he's very passionately concerned about various things, and he has a very rocky emotional depth to him. So he's in your swords pile or your air pile, and usually that's the pile associated with conflicts, problems, issues that arise, and whatnot. So it could be an individual that you are having some arguments with or some problems with, and I don't quite know how he is connected to your relationship with this young girl, but there's definitely some problem coming up with him. And in the earth pile, in the earth pile, you have the devil, and the devil does represent usually an overtly masculine influence, but it represents good productivity in your material affairs. It represents having usually having a very clear agenda as to what you want to accomplish materially, and having the drive and motivation and ambition to get there. So it seems that you will be very driven in a material sense, and you will be very ambitious at the beginning of this phase of your life, starting in the present. So now we have to find where your significator is. It is not in the fire pile. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Please bear with me. Okay, so you are in the earth pile somewhere, and here you are. So the predominant issue at the beginning of this situation is material, is grounded in the physical world, has to do with practical matters, pragmatism, things of that nature. Your resources, anything that represents stability for you. It can sometimes represent familial things, I have found, though traditionally that is more ascribed to the water pile, technically. Okay, I hope you can see all this as well as possible here. It's always tricky. And again, you are here as the Prince of Discs. And you seem very agitated to get going somewhere at the beginning of this. Um, you want to get out, and you're very nervous in a way. You have this tension that is perhaps driving you to possibly seek employment elsewhere. Um, I don't know if you've been reevaluating your job recently rather, um, and possibly debating making some kind of move. Uh, I just sense that you want to get out of whatever your situation is currently. And it does seem that you have made some plans to do so, though I think most of these are more idealizations rather than anything else. It does seem that you can't quite get the ball rolling. You have tried to, but a lot of your plans seem to still be in your head, and you don't seem to really be capitalizing on them as much as you possibly could. Um, so there is this very dramatic influence that is pushing you to do this. Perhaps it is a male figure in particular who could be a friend of yours, who is someone who usually exhibits strong leadership qualities, usually is someone who likes to stir things up, likes to motivate people and get people in situations energized. But they usually don't have a lot of wherewithal to continue what they've started. So on one hand, this could represent you in a sense, um, you know, trying to get yourself started here after, kind of dabbling in plans. Um, it says that you do also have a fair amount of ambition to make this happen. You have a lot of fire in you so far. Um, and overall, this phase of the reading is relatively positive. You have, I would say, you predominantly have wands, which does suggest a lot of creative energy on your part, a lot of productivity, and uh, I suppose self-activation, for lack of a better word. You could say the wands or fire in general represent self-centered actions, but obviously self-centered sounds worse than it is in this particular situation. You do have some earth, though not much. The earth you have is solid. The air you have is low, which is usually good. You have one air card that is a little worrisome, but other than that, you have mostly fire. Um, Fire and earth, in this case, do go well together, and it does sort of explain some of your devil aspect that we talked about at the beginning. Anywho, continuing to the string, so you have a lot of ambition, and you have been uh, relatively successful financially. I mean, sort of. Uh, I, it seems that you've very quickly acquired some kind of amount of money. Excuse me, it's probably not a tremendous sum, but it's probably a decent amount that you have suddenly made for yourself very quickly, it says. 3, 4, 5, 6. And so with that money, perhaps you're thinking that this is your moment, this is your opportunity to maybe do something more that you want to do, satisfying more of your own personal ambitions. You really want to seek out victory in a way. You want more recognition for what you do. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we return to the Two of Wands, which means we stop counting. So from there, again, it just returns to this idea of ambition. So again, if I had to summarize this operation or this part of the operation, I would just say that you are sort of itching to get going somewhere. You sort of have a clue as to where you want to go, but some of the details are still escaping you, perhaps because some of your plans are a little idealistic. But you have sort of put your foot on the pedal, so to speak, and you do have a lot of motivation. you, through that motivation, you have managed to make some money, and that is sort of fueling your personal drive and ambition even further. So now we pair, and we continue to say that you are a very successful person. People see you as successful. Um, people do tend to recognize you as someone who is very productive and very, um, I guess, what's the word I want? Very, just productive, I guess, for lack of a better word. However, there is some kind of issue that you're trying to resolve. It says that there's some kind of competition or conflict that you would like to see settled, perhaps involving this woman in particular, this Queen of Cups figure here. And I don't quite know her relation to you, but she's either someone who's been harsh with you, which is not really usually the nature or temperament of the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups is usually a very fluid kind of personality. She's sort of superficial sometimes too, but she's generally very go with the flow. Again, sort of like the Princess of Cups, sort of kind, uh, usually very reflective and intuitive, sometimes artistic, but generally interested in keeping people happy and sort of being able to adapt to various social situations so that people are happy with what she does. Either she could be suffering from some kind of anxiety or depression herself. I don't know if she could be the mother, perhaps, of the young girl we talked about at the beginning of the reading. She's either been very harsh with you and or she is dealing with some mental crises. It seems that you've tried to work very quickly to remedy this, and so you, oh gosh, uh, and so I think that's probably your main motivation for wanting to branch out or find a different job, whatever it is that you're planning here. It seems that that is probably the basis for it. Um, let's see. It's not really relevant. Yeah, I think in general, all the issue, whatever issues you are having with the Queen of Cups, is I would say the basis for for this move that you're trying to do, etc. It could possibly be that you are in some kind of relationship with her and you are trying to make plans for your future with this person. It does perhaps indicate that as well. Um, so I'm still a little confused as to who exactly she is in relation to you. I don't quite know if you um, are a fan of her or not. I think it could be that you're a little um, going both ways with it. I think you've probably had a little bit of a scuffle with her that you've managed to get over. Um, but she still is having some problems that you feel like you need to address, and so you're taking much of the burden, I think, upon yourself, and really pushing yourself to fix whatever is the problem. So that's Operation One. That's essentially what it says. It ends with the Knight of Wands in the center, which is a card we talked about before. So it just sort of re-emphasizes this idea of a sudden rush of motivation or sort of like getting a lightning flash of insight into this and being pushed. It's sort of like, getting a gust of wind in a boat sort of suddenly propels you forward. Excuse me. I'm just curious what we have here for Huh. Yeah, I feel like you are concerned about taking care of this woman, providing for her. Again, I don't know if you're looking to get married or anything like that, or perhaps you already are married or in some kind of long-term relationship with this person. It does seem to indicate that. I apologize if that's not quite correct. Okay, so now we're going to take your significator out again, and we'll begin operation 2. And for this, we definitely want to move this over here. Okay, the next operation is based on the 12 houses of astrology. And this just penetrates further into the situation. One more. Okay, now we have to deal them out. Here in the end. Beautiful. Okay. Okay, you have for your second operation, you have a fair number of not so great cards. So it does suggest that there will be a rocky period coming up. Let's see. I mean, as far as not so great cards, we have the Five of Swords here, which usually represents either it's the Lord of Defeat, sometimes associated with betrayal of some kind. We have the Seven of Swords, which is sort of the Lord of Futility, giving up on something. You do have the Devil again, though it is in an earthy house, so it's not too bad. We have the Seven of Discs, which represents failure. The Nine of Discs is good, actually. The Hanged Man is not so good. Self-sacrifice, overburdens, too many obligations, etc. And the Five of discs, which represents usually financial instability. But, of course, these all are in different houses, so they pertain to different aspects of your life. We do have to find where your significator is, which is, again, the Prince of discs. And there you are. You are in the 8th house, actually, I believe, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, you are in the house associated with Scorpio. So we're going to collect all these out, because we don't need them, technically. And we just read this pile. So this is the house. This is a strange house, because it's associated with usually really mysterious things, esoteric stuff, death, sexuality, things that are taboo, that sort of stuff, the darker side of life. And covering it, you do have the 7 of discs. So I don't know if this could represent your sex life, to be honest, perhaps with the person, with that Queen of Cups person that I believe you're seeing in some capacity. Okay, so we're here as the Prince of Discs, and it says that there's going to be periods of gain and periods of loss, predominantly periods of loss, but that your work ethic will be able to hopefully pull you through it. So what way did I count for him? To the left, that's right. The Prince of Discs is strange. You're supposed to count in the direction that they face, and as you can see, he sort of is facing in 2 directions at once. I just wanted to double check I'm counting the same direction every operation. So we'll continue to count to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it does say that you something you've wanted for kind of a long time is going to happen for you. You know, on one end, you're going to have perhaps some sexual frustration, but on the other hand, it's also going to be, there are going to be moments where it's really good as well, and sort of fulfilling a lot of what you would like out of your partner. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But again, there's also this destructive element here. It seems to, again, it sort of fluctuates. Your actual level of happiness is going to be very much in limbo, I think, for a while, and partially because the relationship itself seems kind of unstable, or at least the sexual aspect of your relationship seems very unstable. And then from the 2 of discs, we get you again, the Prince of Discs. So it sort of leaves you with a decision to make, is what it says. Because, again, the failure could partially be on your part, in a way. That's what it suggests, anyway, by pairing. And the actual period of alternation seems very prolonged, very drawn out, and sort of never-ending. Like you can't quite escape this cycle of endless really bad and really good, really bad and really good. You know, it sort of just endlessly feels like it's going back and forth. And the last pair we get is really weak, but it does suggest, yeah, I mean, it's elementally weak. You have the Tower and the 9 of Cups, which suggests that your actual level of pleasure is going to very much disintegrate and erode very slowly over time. Excuse me. Okay, so that's all of Operation 2 as well. So now we're going to take significator out again. And we'll continue to ask the same question for operation periods. Oh, excuse me. The more I do these, the better at making a circle I get. First few times I did this, my circle was all over the place. I don't know how, but it's always been a problem. I'm also just a perfectionist, so of course I want the circle to be absolutely perfect, but not going to happen. Okay, so Robert, these piles represent now the 12 signs of the zodiac and constitute the third operation. Okay, this is a little better so far. Yeah, you're definitely in a relationship with that Queen of Cups person. She's in the sign of Libra, right on front. Libra usually constitutes marriages of some kind, traditionally. Okay. Well, it gets much better, actually. After whatever rocky period you go through, that seems to want to go through, excuse me, I can't talk. After whatever rough patch you go through, that seems like it'll go on forever. It actually will pass. And it does get actually much better. You have overall very positive cards, I would say anyway. And it seems like you get yourself back on track. And as a side note, at least, it seems that your sex life does improve somehow. I'm not quite sure how. Not quite. Okay, yeah, no, it's still, it's hard. It's like the connection you have sexually is good, but it will be so strained. It's just, it's like it becomes desperate in a way to make it work. And there's this sadness about it, which is not good. It's like you're forcing yourself to be attracted to something that you're not quite just because you don't want to be alone. And that's, yeah, that's almost exactly what it says. So please be careful. Let's see where we are here, where your significator is. Alright, so you are in the sign of Taurus, actually. Interesting, because that is your natal sign, or your sun sign, rather. Okay, and Taurus here for us is covered by fortune, or the Wheel of Fortune, which technically would not necessarily be well aspected in Taurus, because Jupiter is considered an airy planet, and Taurus is Earth, so technically they contradict, but I think it's probably not. No, it's not that bad. No, it's not bad at all. It's actually, this pile is actually quite positive. Taurus is the sign of usually of your job, the sign associated with your career, your material possessions, and that sort of thing. It is also associated with the Hierophant in the tarot, which means that it can it is technically ruled by that trump, and the Hierophant does represent consultation, advice. It can also represent, in certain contexts, ritual and traditional practice. And exactly that, practice in general, doing something over and over again by rote. And it can also represent conservative thinking, anything like that belongs to Taurus and the Hierophant. Excuse me again. But it does suggest that you will get some kind of boon in terms of your material possessions. Though it's interesting that you don't have a predominance of earth in this pile. You actually have, if anything, a predominance of, well, nothing is really predominant, actually. The only thing you don't have two of is earth. You are the only earth card here. The rest, you have 2 air, 2 water, and 2 fire, and all of them are actually quite positive. So again, this sort of reconfirms this idea that there is going to be some kind of turnaround for you after a point. And it does seem like just a total 180, just things are going to really pick up and be different from what they were in the second operation. It does seem that part of what's going to improve this is perhaps greater cohesion between you and your significant other. You do have art next to you, and usually that does represent a fusion of different substances or different people, different personalities, putting them together in a way that is a strong basis for future development, essentially. And that is what is fueling your little boon in fortune, it seems. Again, you have this sense of marriage. I think you are possibly, we're probably going to get married. That's what it looks like. I hope I'm not totally disastrously wrong, but it does lean in that direction. It says it's very likely that you will be dealing with some kind of major decision, or possibly even a legal decision, regarding your love life, your emotional life, and happiness and celebration. It's a very happy decision to be made, and I would say that it represents your getting married to the Queen of Cups that we talked about in the first operation. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it returns to you. So that ends the counting of that operation very quickly, actually. You will feel like it is it's a great success. It will seem like things are going very smoothly. Things are all going in the way that you want them to. you're going to feel like your happiness has been fulfilled at this point. And it does very strongly suggest that you will um, officially, get bind yourself to this person. She is not necessarily present in this reading, but as I said again, the Queen of Cups was in the sign of Libra when we had all the piles out, and Libra is traditionally the sign of marriage, actually, and you have several indications of some kind of marriage here in this pile. Um, Unfortunately, I can't quite tell when this is going to be. It could be because we do have the sun in here, and it is the sign of Taurus. I don't know if you're planning on getting married in the spring, possibly in May around your birthday. Late April, May is probably when this is going to take place. Okay. And it seems like it will all go very well despite whatever problems you will have had in the interim. It seems like your winter is going to be kind of rough based on the second operation, but that possibly your spring, if that is when you plan on getting married, your spring should be much better. You should be very happy by that point. Now let's do the fourth operation. Now this one can take a very long time, so we will pray that it is mercifully short. This next, the fourth operation, and then after that we just have one more. The fourth operation is still zodiacal. It is the 36 decans, or decanats, of the zodiac. So essentially, the subdegrees of each sign. You figure each sign takes up about 30 degrees. Well, exactly 30 degrees of the circle. Then each of those 30 degrees is subdivided into triplets, each of which represent a separate decan or decanat of that sign. So each sign has 3 decanats associated with it. So we have to do 36 cards in our string. You'll notice this one doesn't have any piles or anything like that. I don't know how versed you are in tarot or anything like that, so just to be safe, I like to try to explain things as I go, so that things are clear. And sort of interesting, I don't know. Let's just do one more. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut. Some people say not to cut during this operation, but I feel much more comfortable cutting at every operation, for whatever reason, I don't know, just personal preference. Now we have to find your significator again. Oops, we're right in front. Alright, so here's your significator. So what we do is we take that out, and everything that was behind it we put to the front. And the subsequent 36 cards form a ring. Okay. So at this point, I think it's safe to say that you should disregard whatever I said in the very beginning of this reading about having a daughter. I mean, you may have a daughter, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like you do. It seems like the Princess of Cups was really more meant to represent the Queen of Cups in some capacity. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. We are supposed to start at the Ascendant, which is the Six of Discs, excuse me. And it suggests that you will be, at the beginning of your marriage, you will be relatively prosperous, having saved up a fair amount and having not really spent on anything major yet. You will be okay financially at first. 4, 5, 6. In general, you will be focusing on the sweetness of the relationship and I guess the general happiness of it, but at the same time, there's all this brooding muck that is not so great. Feelings of restriction, primarily, feeling like sorry, that would be my mother. If you heard that. Anywho, I lost my thought. Either you or oh, for goodness sake. Either you or your spouse will feel trapped by this relationship, actually, and perhaps that's what's going to make you focus on the sweetness of it, the nostalgic aspect of it, as opposed to anything else, because meditating on anything else makes you feel trapped. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, oh, this was upside down. Let's see. And this is sort of the basis of the situation. I want to say this sense of entrapment and feeling like you are no longer as free to pursue your own personal ambitions and your dreams. That seems to be like the hub of this phase of the situation. The problem itself is represented by the universe. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So as a result, there will be it will just become unstable. There's going to be possibly some concerns over finances, but I see it more as concern over your wanting to find ways to maintain your individuality and your freedom. Let's see. And I don't know how well she's going to take that. She might take it the wrong way. 2, 3, 4, 5. But at the same time, you'll feel like this is the right person for you. Excuse me. I think, or at least she will. I think she's going to feel that things are fine, and I don't think she's going to really understand why you'll be upset in any way or imbalanced in any way. I don't know if she's going to quite understand, because she's going to see everything as still fresh and still going well. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But some kind of solution comes up, and it comes through the form of this very ambitious person again, and I don't know if this is a boss of yours or possibly even you. I don't know if you're going to receive some kind of promotion at that point, or some kind of increase to your leadership capacity because of your personal ambition and motivation that we've talked so much about. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh. But for whatever reason, that sort of breaks. Well, the Two of Swords here is technically ill-aspected, but the cards around it are so benign that it doesn't really become anything bad. It's sort of just like a neutral thing, either I almost sense that like whatever benefits you receive from this moment here, the Six of Swords business, which again seems either to be um, I don't know, possibly it could be you even just looking for some kind of managerial work, or any kind of work that will or any opportunity to express your leadership capacities. And I don't know how well you're going to how easily you're going to find opportunities for that, I think is what it's saying. Um, the Two of Swords is sort of like a moot point sort of thing. Um, I don't know how much positive response you're going to get from that, from looking for that. It's sort of ambiguous to me. I don't know. Excuse me. And then we return from there right to the Six of Discs. So it was very mercifully short. And that constitutes the end of the counting. So now to pair these, this is always a trip with this operation. So we start off with these here, not really relevant. Your wife possibly will become pregnant, possibly. There is a chance for it. But again, I see you as, again, sort of not being sure what decisions you want to make regarding this. Again, sort of getting lost in your head and not being really able to put whatever choices you want to make in action. Let's see. Just kind of go through and skim and see what it. Try to get the overall picture here. Okay. Oh dear. Just make sure this is right. Okay. I do sense that, again, your relationship with this person is so all over the place. One minute it's really great, and then the next minute it's just so unstable. I don't know, and I don't know if that's because of you, really, or I mean, if I had to attribute it to someone, I would say it's her. I mean, she seems all over the map, and it really could just be because, again, I think she suffers from anxiety or depression or something, and she just is. She can be harsh sometimes. She's got a mean streak to her that can, I want to say, come out of nowhere. That in some ways, I want to say, can emasculate you. She in some ways deprives you of whatever agency you have. And after marriage, I mean, no one has that much agency after marriage to begin with, and to be with someone who doubly is sort of restricting upon you can't be good. Because what you really want, I think, what would make you happier is authority, greater authority over yourself and your career. And you don't feel like you're being given that opportunity. So you're going to, but you will make up from this argument, or whatever. Possibly it could just be, your wife is debating having a child at this point. Maybe that's all it's saying, is that during the conversation about having a child, you're not going to be sure what exactly you want to do, if you're ready for that yet or not. She might not take that well, again, and you're, again, going to feel like you don't really have much say in the matter. you will make up, kiss and make up, basically. But again, your power will feel restricted, because once you have a child, you'll start to develop roots wherever you are, and so your freedom will be even more pinned down. And I don't know if you're quite ready for that yet. It seems like you're going to just keep putting band-aids over the situation over a long period of time until you just get through it, without really addressing the heart of the issue. It does seem that you will get advice from someone, either possibly your own mother, could be someone you turn to for advice in this situation. You do have the Queen of Discs and the Hierophant here paired together. And again, like I said before, the Queen of Discs being another Discs person could easily be your mother here, if she, provided she's still alive. I have no idea how old you are. I know very, very little about you. So I do want to say that you're going to turn to your mother or some sort of older female nurturing kind of person who I feel like has been there before. She's gone through the process already, and so you might turn to her for help. And I think that's going to be a really beneficial thing for you. I think that that's going to make it feel like either it's going to ease the decision for you, it's going to make it easier for you, or I just feel like that's going to constitute a release for you, a release of tension that's really needed. And possibly well, that's interesting. You have the universe paired with the Eight of Wands, so on one hand you have speed, and on the other hand you have sloth and slow motion, inertia. So they sort of contradict each other. I don't really quite get that pairing, honestly, because they're so antithetical. Yeah, the idealistic side of you is going to have a very hard time with all this. But it does seem that you will, again, you're going to be able to rise to the situation, and you will be able to deal with it. You'll triumph over whatever difficulties beset you. But I do, again, get this sense that your connection with this person, with this woman, is sort of illusionary. You're sort of forcing it to happen. Again, you have the Magus paired with the Ten of Cups. So in some ways, your actual level of happiness with this person is going to start to feel like it's a fabrication. Like you've made it up, in a way. Because again, you have the Queen of Cups paired with the Tower as well. So things are going to become shaky and unstable and possibly on the brink of destruction. It seems that I almost want to say that you're going to want to take a vacation from it. I don't know. I don't quite know how this is resolved in here, because we do have the Aeon with the Princess of Cups, so that neither of those are well aspected. And technically they sort of cancel each other out, so they're not really technically important. Then we have the Prince of Wands and the Four of Wands, who is usually, excuse me, a very, again, sort of ambitious person who is freedom-loving, who likes to explore things, doesn't really have many restrictions, and that kind of person is, I sort of feel like the direction you're going to want to head in, Alternatively, it could represent someone else outside of the situation, but I haven't seen anyone else pop up yet in any of these operations that, that would make sense for. I see it more as representing you doing very well at work. But the Princess of Swords with paired with the Five of Discs Again, I don't know if health is going to become an issue or just um, I just sense there's this is such a mixed bag. You know, this operation you don't really have a predominance of positive or negative. You know, it's very much just mixed. Unlike the previous operation, you know, the third operation we did was all positive practically, and this is very much back to a mix. You know, the second operation was mostly bad. So this is in some ways a culmination of those two operations, and the bad crap of the second operation is sort of that you've never really quite addressed throughout this year. Um, you know, it's just it's brooding and it's not quite healthy. And I think that's overall the impression I get of that last pairing is just getting frustrated with the lack of support you feel like you're getting, or rather that you're not getting. Um, okay, so that constitutes the end of that um, operation. And now we do the last operation. How will this year resolve? And as far as timeline for that fourth operation, you know, Taurus was on the ascendant, so technically, it would probably be around the same, much of the same time period as when you get married, probably spring going into summer. And this should ideally, the Tree of Life in the fifth operation should ideally give us something around the time of late summer, early fall, as where we are now. I have to tell you, this might have been the smoothest opening of the key I have ever done. I've never gotten it under 2 hours before, and to only have an hour of video is pretty great. Usually this reading takes so long. It can be very, very taxing, but for whatever reason, with the grace of God, we're doing okay today. Let's cut. Now we deal into the 10 Sephiroth. Excellent. Okay. Huh. Okay, so for your final operation, let's see if I can get as much of this in here as possible. Um, it would be very difficult to explain all of this at once, so I'm not going to waste your time and inform you as to what all the Sephiroth mean, and what their covers mean, their cover cards. So we're just going to look for your significator, and I'm going to guess that you're either in Gabora, which you are not, or in Hod, possibly. Nope. What about Malkut? Nope. What about Keter? Oh, you're in Chokhmah, actually. Interesting. Okay. Um, so you are in the pile of Chokhmah, which technically represents the archetypal masculine, or let's see, how can I describe it? Chokhmah in Hebrew means wisdom, actually, and it represents essentially the active principle, or the divine masculine principle. So it is associated with action, revolution, sometimes destruction, uh, great strength and vigor and enthusiasm. So you are in that pile, and that makes sense for you given everything that we've said about you, um, and your situation here. Let's see, you have a good amount of fire here. You have predominantly fire, again, which is good. That seems to be more in your element. Though you do have some not so great cards, but nothing is particularly egregious here. So let's see. So we've got the Prince of Discs here, and I think it says that some sort of wave of inspiration is suddenly going to take over. You're going to get some kind of insight that's going to kind of smack you over the head like a ton of bricks. And it is likely that you are going to decide to either take a break from your relationship. I don't know if you'll end it per se, but you may take a break from it in some capacity. And it says that that's probably a good thing. 2, 3. Just because, you're as good as it can be sometimes, you're just not that happy with it. You want the opportunity to pursue your own excellence and your own goals and things of that sort. I do think that your significant other will probably understand at this point that perhaps she'll get it too, and then it returns to you, which means that you will be in some ways rewarded with your own agency. A lot of these operations ended counting with you, actually, as a significator, which tells me that a lot of this is left up to you. A lot of the problems that have arisen in this reading do seem to come from your personal inaction. And I would encourage you to always be true to what you're really feeling, and don't delude yourself simply because you think this is it. Because I sense that there's so much else out there that makes you happy, that makes you feel fulfilled, particularly in terms of your career and, your own ambitions. And I would stress that it's more important to pursue those happinesses than the ones that are so fluid. 1 minute this relationship gives you great happiness, and then it gives you great tragedy. And it seems to be going back and forth. So, do be careful. And I know that you will, of course, make whatever decision you will. I mean, please don't base a decision entirely off of this. Of course, my disclaimer. Please do not base any medical, legal, major life decisions based on a tarot reading. And I, of course, am not responsible for whatever decision you decide to make as an adult. But I've clearly indicated, that this might not necessarily be the best relationship for you to be in for whatever reason. Um, okay. Yeah, I think it seems that, again, it is likely that you will want to get out of this relationship, get out of this situation, and just abort. Just because it doesn't, it's just not that great. It's just good, is what it says in the end. You're at the end of this year, you're just gonna feel like it was just good. And you don't want to feel that just after a year. And that's how it ends. It ends with you sort of being marginally happy with what you've got and wanting very badly to leave it somehow or take a break from it or whatever. Um, okay. Uh, and that's it. That is the full OOTK for you from now until ideally this time next year. Um, there's no real chronological indicator here for this, unfortunately, so I can't really say exactly when this is going to be. But based on our question, I would assume it's sometime around late summer, early fall. So, of course, as always, if you have any questions for me, if there was anything that wasn't quite clear, um, keep in mind it is going to be hard for me to go back and sort of find what you're talking about because I recorded it as opposed to writing it down. When I write them down, or rather when people request written ones, it's a lot easier to kind of go back and check things. Video is a little tougher. Um, but if you do have questions, and if I can answer them, I certainly will. I hope that you are satisfied with this reading. I hope you feel like you got what you paid for, and I hope that you found it accurate and helpful in some capacity. Um, so yeah, please let me know if you have any feedback for me. I would also very much appreciate that as well. And I wish you only the best with this situation. I can imagine this is a very difficult situation, and I would not want to be in it myself. So I certainly am wishing you a lot of courage and fortitude in this and whatnot. And I hope that you will be able to choose what will make you happiest. I certainly hope that for you. Um, so please let me know, and I hope this uploads correctly and everything else like that. And thank you so much for your patronage. I tremendously appreciate it. I really do. And thank you for supporting my channel, whatever, my blog, whatever you found my material from. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. And take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.